The remarkable journey of George Foreman. George Foreman, from troubled youth to boxing legend and business icon. Hello, English learners. Today we're going to explore the fascinating story of George Foreman, one of boxing's greatest champions, who later became a beloved businessman and minister. His journey from poverty to worldwide fame will help you improve your English skills. As you follow George's story, you'll learn new vocabulary and see how someone can completely transform their life multiple times. His story shows that with determination and faith, you can overcome challenges and reinvent yourself at any age. George Foreman is one of the most remarkable figures in sports history. He is known for his powerful punches in the boxing ring and his friendly smile selling grills on television. Throughout his career, George won Olympic gold, became heavyweight champion twice, 20 years apart, and created one of the most successful products in American history. His journey from troubled youth to global icon is truly extraordinary. George is not just a boxer, but also a minister, author, and entrepreneur. His influence extends beyond sports to religion, business, and popular culture, showing how one person can succeed in many different fields. George Edward Foreman was not always the smiling grandfather who sold millions of grills. He was born on January 10, 1949, in Marshall, Texas. He grew up poor in Houston's Fifth Ward with 6 brothers and sisters. As a teenager, George was going down a dangerous path. By age 15, he had dropped out of school and was stealing from people on the streets. He later called himself the neighborhood mugger. "I was so bad," George once told reporters, "I couldn't even get along with myself." He was very big and strong, so few people would challenge him. His future did not look good. The turning point came at age 16 when he saw a Job Corps advertisement on TV. Job Corps is a program that helps young people learn job skills. With nothing to lose, George asked his mother to sign him up. At the Job Corps, George learned useful skills like carpentry and bricklaying. But his life really changed when Supervisor Doc Broaddus noticed how strong he was. "You should be a boxer," Broaddus told the big teenager. George didn't want to box at first. "I don't want to get hit in the face," he said. But Broaddus had a good answer. "With your power, nobody's going to hit you." The man who played Broaddus in the 2023 movie about George said, "Doc saw something in George that nobody else did. Not even George himself. He saw a champion in a kid who was just trying to get 3 meals a day." Another boxer named Ron Lyle later said, "George didn't come to boxing. Boxing came looking for him." In just 2 years, George went from never boxing to winning a gold medal at the Olympics. This was an amazing achievement. At the 1968 Mexico City Olympics, he defeated Jonas Chapoulas from the Soviet Union. After winning, George surprised people by walking proudly around the ring with a small American flag. This happened during a time when there was much racial tension in America. When some people criticized him for waving the flag, George simply said, "I was just proud to be an American. People who never had a meal had helped me get there." For many years after, George would say his Olympic gold medal meant more to him than any world championship. This shows how important that moment was in his journey from the streets of Houston. George became a professional boxer in 1969. He quickly became known as boxing's most frightening fighter. With very powerful fists and a mean look, he defeated opponents easily. Howard Cosell, a famous sports announcer, described George's boxing style as like watching a man trying to catch a bus with a sledgehammer. His style wasn't pretty or fancy. It was just powerful and effective. Joe Frazier, who was the champion, learned this in 1973. George knocked him down 6 times in just 2 rounds. This led to Cosell's famous words, "Down goes Frazier, down goes Frazier, down goes Frazier." Ken Norton, another boxer George defeated, later said, "When George hit me, I saw stars. And I don't mean the Hollywood kind. I saw the kind astronomers study." As champion, George acted distant and scary. He rarely smiled in public and gave short answers to reporters' questions. Years later, he admitted this was on purpose. He was copying former champion Sonny Liston. "I thought that's how champions were supposed to act," George said later with a laugh. "Mean and scary. I wasn't really like that, but I played the part because I thought that's what people expected." George was a great champion, but not for long. After winning fights against Jose Roman and Ken Norton, he went to Africa for what was supposed to be another easy win. But Muhammad Ali had other plans. The 1974 fight with Ali in Kinshasa, Zaire, now Democratic Republic of Congo, was supposed to be George's greatest moment. Most people thought George would easily beat Ali, who was 32 years old, but something unexpected happened. Ali used a clever strategy called rope-a-dope. He let George punch until George became tired. Then Ali attacked in the 8th round and won the fight. "That was my introduction to missionary work," George later joked. "I was just spreading the word, and the word was that Ali was still the greatest." The loss hurt George deeply. For years, he claimed he had been drugged before the fight. He couldn't accept that Ali had simply outsmarted him. Ali's trainer, Angelo Dundee, explained it simply. George could knock down walls, but Muhammad was playing chess while George was playing checkers. After losing to Ali, George won several comeback fights, but wasn't seen as unbeatable anymore. His career hit bottom after a tough loss to Jimmy Young in Puerto Rico in 1977. In the locker room after that fight, George was exhausted and overheated. He had what he describes as a near-death experience. "I felt like I was literally in hell," he recalled. "I was dying, and I didn't want to go that way." In that moment, George had a powerful religious experience. "I knew that Jesus Christ was coming alive in me," he said. "I ran into the shower and turned on the water, and, hallelujah, I was born again." When George came out of that locker room, he was a changed man. His first words to surprised reporters were, "Jesus Christ has come alive in me." For 10 years after his spiritual experience, George stopped boxing completely. He became a minister and started the Church of the Lord Jesus Christ in Houston. He focused on helping troubled young people. The change was complete. The once angry champion became known for his big smile and gentle personality. He opened the George Foreman Youth and Community Center to help kids have better opportunities than he had. A TV commentator named Larry Merchant said, "It was like watching Darth Vader become Mr. Rogers." This was a funny way of saying George changed from a villain to a kind person. During this time, George supported himself and his church through small jobs and speaking events. When money became tight, friends suggested he return to boxing. "No way," George would say. "I'm a preacher now." When George announced he would start boxing again in 1987 at age 38, most boxing experts thought it was a joke. "The only thing George is going to fight is gravity," one writer said. His early comeback fights didn't impress people. He was overweight and slow. But he kept winning, knocking out less skilled boxers with his still powerful right hand. "I'm fighting so my kids don't have to," George explained, talking about his money problems. But something else was happening too. People were starting to love this new, happy George Foreman. Once feared as boxing's scariest villain, he was becoming its most beloved underdog. The man who rarely smiled now had audiences laughing at his jokes about himself. By 1994, the 45-year-old George had fought his way back to a title shot, though few gave him any chance against 26-year-old champion Michael Moorer. George wore the same red shorts he'd worn against Ali 20 years earlier. For 9 rounds, Moorer outboxed the slower George. George was bleeding and tired. It seemed he was just there to collect one last big paycheck. Then, in the 10th round, he landed the punch that defied time. A short, powerful right hand hit Moorer on the chin, sending him crashing to the floor. As Moorer lay on his back, the referee counted him out. Against all odds, George Foreman had become the oldest heavyweight champion in history at 45 years and 299 days, a record that still stands today. HBO commentator Jim Lampley captured the moment perfectly. "It happened. It happened. George Foreman has done it." After winning the title, George defended it once before retiring for good in 1997 at age 48. But his greatest success was yet to come. Outside the boxing ring, the George Foreman grill, introduced in 1994, became one of the most successful products in American history. The man once known for his powerful punches was now famous for helping people cook low-fat burgers. "I don't mind," George joked. "I've been hit in the head a lot. I'm just glad I can remember my name when I cash the checks." The numbers were amazing. By 2011, over 100 million Foreman grills had been sold worldwide. In 1999, George sold the rights to his name and image on the product for $138 million. "I made more money from that grill than I made in all my boxing matches combined," George happily admitted. Despite his success, George's greatest pride was his family. He had 12 children, 5 sons and 7 daughters. In what became a funny joke, he named all his sons George Edward Foreman. When asked why, George's explanation was simple and touching. "I wanted them to always have something in common. If one of us goes up, we all go up together. If one goes down, we all go down together." His daughter Frida followed him into boxing, becoming professional in 2000. "I told her not to," George said at the time. "In boxing, it's not a game. You don't play boxing." Tragedy struck in 2019 when Frida died by suicide at age 42. This was a terrible loss for the close Foreman family. Looking back at George's extraordinary journey, it's hard to imagine any modern sports figure changing so completely. From feared champion to beloved minister to successful businessman, George lived many lives in one. Muhammad Ali, his greatest rival, perhaps said it best. George was one of the few people who changed the image of boxing. And he did it twice. First as the baddest man on the planet, then as the nicest. Evander Holyfield, who fought George in 1991, was amazed by his transformation. George proved that the biggest fights aren't always in the ring. His greatest victory was changing himself. When George passed away in March 2025 at age 76, the sports world lost more than a great champion. It lost a living example of how someone can reinvent themselves. George Foreman's life story reads like fiction. From hungry street kid to Olympic champion. From angry heavyweight destroyer to happy minister. From middle-aged comeback king to famous businessman with a cooking product. Through everything, he stayed humble. Success isn't measured by money or power or social rank, he once said. Success is measured by your discipline and inner peace. Jim Brown, a famous football player who became friends with George, offered perhaps the best summary. George lived 3 great lives when most people struggle to get one right. That's not just a champion, that's a miracle. The next time you see a George Foreman grill, remember the amazing man behind it, a true American original who showed that it's never too late to change and have a second chance.